There are many ways in which global wealth is concentrated, whether that be by age, race, gender, or quality and cost of education. Among the starkest indicators of all tends to be geographical concentration though. Here in the UK alone, there are sizable wealth gaps between regions, whether that be between north and south, or just between London and the southeast and the rest of the UK. But those gaps in wealth pale in comparison to the shocking global inequalities. Monaco has the highest average annual income of any nation on earth at over $186,000, compared to just $530 in the likes of Afghanistan and DR Congo. That's an income of just $44 a month. Half of the world's population survive on less than $5.50 a day. In fact, survive might not be the most appropriate word, given that every day 10,000 people die because they lack access to affordable healthcare. However, whilst there is an enormous gulf between average salaries across countries and continents, how does that reflect upon the very wealthiest individuals in each of these regions? Well, that is the subject of this video, as we take a look at the richest people in each of the world's 7 continents. Individuals are featured based upon their net worth according to Forbes' real-time billionaires list at the time of recording, unless stated otherwise, which is updated every trading day. Here is the richest person in each of the world's 7 continents. Africa. Aliko Dangote. We start this 7 in Africa, which is the world's poorest continent by almost every metric. The exception, I suppose, would be total GDP, in which Africa comes out in ahead of Australia or Oceania, but once that is adjusted to a per capita basis, Australia or Oceania is actually the wealthiest continent on Earth, and Africa is by far the poorest, unless you include Antarctica, which, as you can see, is not applicable. Africa also has the starkest gender wealth gap of any continent, with 22 men holding more wealth than the continent's entire female population, made up of 685 million women. Unsurprisingly then, the continent's richest individual is a man, namely Aliko Dangote. Home to 23 billionaires in total, Dangote takes the crown in Africa, ahead of diamond magnate and former De Beers chairman Nicky Oppenheimer and construction tycoon Nassef Safiras, who also owns a controlling 55% stake in Premier League football club Aston Villa. Dangote is a Nigerian aristocrat who was born into wealth. His great-grandfather, Alhassan Dantanta, was the richest man in West Africa. But Dangote has certainly furthered his family's wealth through his business, the Dangote Group. Africa's largest conglomerate, with products ranging from sugar and salt to cement and oil, the Dangote Group turns over more than $4 billion a year. Dangote himself has an estimated personal net worth of $11.6 billion, making him Africa's only decabillionaire and the 197th richest person in the entire world. Asia. Mukesh Ambani. Asia will soon overtake both Europe and South America as the continent with the most billionaires on Earth. China alone is averaging a new billionaire once every 17 hours, and Beijing recently eclipsed New York to become the city with the most billionaires in the world. Whilst China dominates Asia's list of wealthiest individuals, it is Reliance Industries tycoon Mukesh Ambani from India who comes out on top from the world's most populous continent. Ambani comes in ahead of the likes of Nongfu Spring founder Zhong Shanshan, Tencent majority shareholder Ma Hu-teng, and his compatriot Gautam Adani in Asia's rich list, with a personal fortune much like Aliko Dangote's, which is highly diversified. Ambani was actually born in the British colony of Aden, modern-day Yemen, but his family moved back to India when Ambani was just 1 year old. Ambani's father was a businessman who enjoyed success, particularly later in life, owning a 14-floor apartment block in Mumbai, and Ambani attended Stanford University in the United States. He and his brother followed their father into the rapidly expanding family business, Reliance Industries Limited. When their father died in 2002 without a will, it created a rift between the two brothers, so the company was split in half. Ambani's hugely diversified half has since performed very well, and his net worth exploded over the last 12 months to over $70 billion, making him the 13th richest person in the world. Europe. Bernard Arnault. Europe is home to the most billionaires of any continent on Earth, soon to be overtaken by Asia. 3 of the 4 richest families and individuals in Europe are French, with the exception being Zara founder Amancio Ortega, who is Spanish. Ortega was, for a very long time, Europe's richest individual, and in 2015 he even overtook Bill Gates to become the richest person on Earth. With a net worth of $81.7 billion at the time of recording, Ortega now trails Europe's richest person, Bernard Arnault, by more than $100 billion. Arnault also began working for his father's business, Ferret Savenel, later becoming the company's president in 1978. In the early to mid-1980s, Arnault became involved in the luxury goods business, which would become the source of his astonishing wealth. He later took ownership of the luxury brand Christian Dior, Louis Vuitton, and Celine. Arnault later brought all of his companies together under the LVMH umbrella, who also owned the likes of Givenchy, Moet Champagne, and the jewelers Tiffany & Co. LVMH rakes in over 50 billion euros a year in terms of revenue, and almost 8 billion euros a year in terms of profit, at least prior to the pandemic. Arnault's Arnault Family Group, which is the name of his holding company, owns 46.84% of LVMH shares, giving Arnault an estimated net worth of $182.3 billion at the time of recording. That makes him comfortably the richest person in Europe and the second richest person in the world, having actually topped the world rankings as recently as January 2020. North America. Jeff Bezos. The man who Bernard Arnault briefly replaced as the world's richest person in both 2019 and in 2020, and the man who subsequently leapfrogged him to regain top spot on both occasions, it is no exaggeration to say that Jeff Bezos is very comfortable, arguably even well off. Hell, he can probably afford to order a Domino's without even using a discount code. Bezos was born into a wealthy family. His stepfather worked as an engineer for Exxon, though obviously nothing like the extraordinary wealth that he has now. Bezos founded Amazon, an online bookstore, out of his garage in 1994. His parents were among the early investors in the business, loaning Jeff $300,000, and Bezos apparently warned investors that there was a 70% chance that the business would fail. It didn't, although the dot-com bubble ensured that it wasn't plain sailing for Amazon to become one of the biggest companies in the world. It took a decade for the company to have its first profitable year in 2004, but from that point on, the business has exploded. Amazon rapidly expanded from selling books to selling, well, basically everything. Amazon is now the 4th largest company in the entire world, and Bezos' stake of over 10% ownership in the business, along with all of his other assets, gives him an estimated net worth of $194.7 billion, making him the richest person on Earth. The US is home to 8 of the world's 10 richest billionaires, but Bezos sees off the likes of fellow Sentai billionaires Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Warren Buffett, Larry Ellison, and, depending on which day of the week you check, Larry Page as well, to be crowned as the continent's wealthiest person. South America. Iris von Bonner. Whilst North America's wealthiest individual, Jeff Bezos, is practically a household name, fewer people will have heard of the wealthiest person from South America. That is because the Luksich family, of which Iris von Bonner is now the matriarch, keep a fairly low profile. Von Bonner is the widow of Andronico Luksich Arberoa, a Chilean-born billionaire whose parents immigrated to Chile. Luksich's father was from Croatia, his mother was from Bolivia, and he was born in the Chilean port city of Antofagasta, which was previously part of Bolivia. Situated in the Atacama Desert, which is the world's driest desert, Antofagasta has very little vegetation, but lots of precious metals. That was the source of Andronico Luksich's initial fortune through his mining company, Antofagasta plc, which he acquired in 1980 and is now floated on the London Stock Exchange as a FTSE 100 constituent. Over time, Luksich's business interests diversified, as his sons became senior directors of his businesses, taking them into the beverage, media, and finance sectors. Luksic died of cancer in 2005, with the bulk of his $4.2 billion fortune going to his widow, Iris von Bonner. Between them, von Bonner and Luksic's children have grown the Luksic Group considerably over the last 15 years. The family now has an estimated net worth of almost $25 billion, and Iris von Bonner ranks ahead of Brazilian banker Jorge Paulo Lemann and Facebook co-founder Eduardo Saverin in Forbes' live list of South American billionaires. Australia/Oceania. Gina Rinehart. There's plenty that Gina Rinehart and Iris von Bonner, South America, and Australia's wealthiest residents have in common, but there is a great deal that separates them as well. Like von Bonner, Rinehart inherited a vast business empire which has grown over the years, built upon the wealth of natural resources extracted from the ground. Unlike von Bonner though, Rinehart has not kept a low profile. Rinehart's father, Lang Hancock, discovered the world's largest iron ore deposits in Western Australia in 1952. That made him the richest person in Australia, but Hancock was as well known for his politics and controversial comments as he was for his business empire. His views, both socially and economically, were of the extreme right. Hancock spent millions trying to get Western Australia to secede and gain independence, with little success. He also advocated for the sterilisation of Australia's Aboriginal population by poisoning their water supply, despite accusations that he actually fathered a child with an Aboriginal woman. Hancock later married his Filipino maid when he was 76 years old and she was 36. Gina Rinehart, Hancock's daughter from his second marriage, despised Hancock's new wife, and when her father died, aged 82, she accused her stepmother of having caused his death. An inquest didn't come to the same conclusion. Rinehart cuts a controversial figure in Australia due to her climate denial and comments that Australian mining workers should work for $2 a day in order to compete with their African counterparts and remain competitive. She is worth an estimated $23.8 billion, meaning that a mining worker on $2 a day would have to work 7 days a week for over 32 million years in order to have the same wealth as her, without spending a single penny during that time. For context, humans in their modern form have only existed for around 200,000 years. Gorillas diverged around 7 million years ago, and orangutans 14 million years ago. Antarctica. Eli the avaricious elephant seal. Up until the mid-1980s, Antarctica had a strong social democratic framework built upon a far-reaching welfare state, a large state sector, and a highly unionised private sector. However, the world's coldest continent saw a seismic social, economic, and political shift towards the end of the Cold War. State enterprise was sold off for pennies on the pound, the Antarctic pound, markets were deregulated, and taxes on the wealthiest, seals, penguins, and even mites in Antarctica, were absolutely slashed. One of the biggest profiteers of this transformation was Eli, the avaricious elephant seal, as he has become known within the Antarctic community. Eli took advantage of the lack of anti-mining legislation in Antarctica in the 1980s to drill for precious metals at Brand Peak in Palmerland. Unfortunately for him, the operation wasn't financially viable, but he also bought Antarctica's state gas supplier off the government, making him a billionaire overnight. Eli has since become a media mogul as well, acquiring the Antarctic Gazette and the broadcaster Seal, which presents the show Seal News, spreading climate change denial in one of the most rapidly warming places on the planet. Renowned for having frozen his workers' pay over the last 3 decades, Eli controls all of his business interests through the holding company Cold Hard Business, which is channeled through the Cayman Islands for tax purposes. As of the last count, Eli has an estimated net worth in excess of $35 trillion, which is roughly equivalent to the combined GDP of both China and the United States. No, not really. There are no permanent residents in Antarctica, so the richest person there is probably just the scientific researcher based there right now who either has the best pension, has written the best-selling book, or who inherited a hefty chunk of cash from their parents when they died. So thank you all as ever for watching today's video, which I may have nabbed ever so slightly from one of my best performing videos on my day job. But thank you nonetheless. Please do hit the like button if you enjoyed today's video, it makes a big difference to the algorithms. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and make sure that you are subscribed and have notifications turned on for The Reluctant Investor.